Okay, multiple competitors yet no competition. Now there are more than 130 claims. I showed you this yesterday. You remember this? Good. Okay, so there are very few claims. Most of those fall into this one superficial and manipulative claims. If we want to look at a comparison, now that was one of the, somebody asked me, like can we do that? Objective comparison of claims before even the claims are evaluated. Before even, suppose, take Professor Iyengar's 1478 BC or Professor Achar's 3067 BC, and I'll show you 6 other claims here, total. Before even you say whether the claim is right or wrong, based on certain information about that, we can say how those claims score against the logic of scientific discovery, against the Tarka Shastra, against the consistency of a scientific theory, and so on. That's what I'm going to show you. So you can have various criterias, okay, various criterias. These are some, there could be many more. So the first criteria that's here proposed is not a criteria, it's just an information. You can ask a question, is this researcher making any a priori assumption? You understand what is the a priori assumption? So for example, I'll give you a couple of examples without saying the names, there are many. There are, out of 130 claims, close to 60 claims, almost half of those are in the area of 3000 BC. Close to 60 claims are close to 3000 BC. Can you tell me why? Traditional date, and where does the traditional? Not Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta is, they use Aryabhatta to support it. I mean, if you want to know the fun and confusion of Aryabhatta, those of you at least who can read Marathi, go back to 1905. Lokmanya Tilak wrote 8 Agralekh, if you can read Marathi, 8 Agralekh, okay? And he does an amazing job on that. In fact, when I read it, I said forget about the Swarajya and all that, just on those 8, if my way could happen, I would have called him Lokamanya. It's such a brilliant 8 things that is written, okay. No, related to that is a Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga, the traditional understanding 3102 BC, so they say Kali Yuga, remember I showed Kali Yuga, so the formula is like this. How many of you remember simultaneous equations from math, right? The formula is Kali Yuga equal to, beginning of Kali Yuga I should say, is equal to passing away of Krishna, okay? Then beginning of Kali Yuga equal to 3102 BCE, okay? And then the year of Mahābhārata War is equal to passing away of Krishna minus 36 years. Something like that. When they try to solve these 3, you end up in 3000 BC. Many of the researchers, they ended up with 3000 BC in this fashion. So they started there, then they started studying, testing the evidence, even many astronomers. And so they couldn't figure out Saturn, Jupiter, nothing, Arundhati, nothing. So what happens? The traditional claim is around 3000 BC. So they tried here, didn't work, tried here, didn't work, tried here, didn't work, tried, okay, let's come here. Almost 60 of them did just this. Are you with me? So they tried, and actually it's not that wrong because they tried, nothing works. So I say, until somebody does something, let's stick with 3000 BC. Are you with me? Traditional claim. So are they making any a priori assumption? Because not quite. In fact, nobody knows where it came from. The Aryabhatta problem, in a simple way, because just to save time, it is very similar to this. Aryabhatta says, how many of you have read Aryabhatiya or refer to that particular verse? So you can help me. The verse says, Aryabhatta says, when I was 23 years old, 3600 years of Kali Yuga had passed. Okay? But this is a relative information. I gave this my standard answer. So suppose these two are neighbors. and Sushri ji invites me for breakfast at her place. Please come to my house for breakfast. I say, oh, I would love to. And where do you live? Oh, he said, oh, that's easy. My house is exactly opposite to his house. I say, okay, thank you. And where is his house? His house is exactly opposite to my house. That is essentially in sum the problem of 36. So he says, when I was 23 years old, 3600 years of Kali Yuga has gone. But when was he 23 years old? Is there an independent reference? The answer is no, there is no independent reference. Now people have tried to take references from Aryabhatiya, some eclipses, trying to predict this, but we could get back to eclipse problem. Actually what happens is, people think eclipse is such a rare thing. You know what, if you are waiting for 2 years, yes, it is a rare thing, because maybe 1 or 2 eclipses happen. When you are talking thousands of years, they are dime a dozen. There are hundreds of thousands. Every year there are 2 eclipses. Whether it is seen in your location is a different story. So that's not a very thing. Next one, sticking to one discipline of science. This is a problem. I mean, somebody said D.K. Hari, you know, yesterday the year for this. What happens is, so I'll give you an example. D.K. Hari, you know, the best in Chennai. So I gave him a reference of Ramayana. Just like Arundhati Vasishtha you would give, his date is 5114 BC for Ramayana. It is not his date, it is the date of Pushkar Bhatnagar, late Pushkar Bhatnagar, that is copied in the sense followed, accepted, propagated by D.K. Hari, or same thing propagated by, help me, one in Delhi, Saroj Bala, you know, that's another one, there are a few more. So I said, how do you explain this reference of Ramayana? You have done others, how do you explain this? Now he hasn't done anything, he is taking work of Pushkar Bhatnagar. So when I say how do you explain for your 5114, just like I will ask about Arundhati, but Ramayana, he says, oh no, but we have many other references. We have many other evidence. You understand? No, how do you explain this? We have many other evidence. That's what I am referring. Do you stick to one discipline of science? Now I came up with 5561 BCE. I did not bring anything else but astronomy, if you remember. And we will go in other evidence and now find a supportive evidence. Then once you do this, you can bring other evidence to support it. Is there a clear statement of a theory? For example, what is the statement of my theory? All the astronomy observations of Mahabharata text or Ramayana text are actual, factual, visual observations of the sky. That's it, that simple thing. Suppose we go to Achar. I mean, I ask this, I say, you know, I mean, I tell those people who come and, you know, try to cheer up for another date, I said, what is the theory? For example, Achar, other than one observation of Mars and another observation of Saturn, everything else that I showed you, he considered those to be comets. So I erased those, but Shashi Jena, Bhrugusuna, Dharaputro, Shashi Jena, these are all comets. Brihaspati is a comet, Shanishchar is a comet, Suryaputra is a comet. You are laughing, I am not making it up, guys. Go and see it. Mohan Gupta, Professor Mohan Gupta, same thing. Okay, same thing. They with the PhDs, me with no PhD. Now again, nothing against PhD, I am just saying it. Okay, all right. The next one, are they taking into account all the evidence? Like there is one Manish Pandit, you know, he kind of fights, he takes the date of Achar. You know, I said, okay, I mean, if you go look at the back of my book, there are 215 observations. He said, what are the observations you are talking? They don't want to talk about those observations. Have you listed it? Does theory leads to objective testing? I gave you example. If Professor Achar claims that Brihaspati and Shanishchar are a comet, who am I to question it? If Einstein thinks the space can bend, who am I to question it? But I am going to look at the prediction and show me the money, show me the evidence. They cannot show it. Auxiliary hypothesis, because of time I am going to skip it. This is not, you know, it's not like neither preferred or not preferred, but if you come up with the auxiliary hypothesis, you have more burden on you to prove. For example, he is saying that certain descriptions are comets is an auxiliary hypothesis, for example. And a consistency of a theory, we'll talk about it. Now, if you look at these criteria and against my claim, okay, let's say this all looks good. Now, is that surprising? No, I created the slide. So, am I going to give a bad score to myself? Of course not. Okay, what Karl Popper said is this: if you are not critical of your own work, someone else will. So, you better be critical, very critical than anyone else will ever dare. Okay. So it's based on that, and again this is very open for criticism, everything. I mean, so for example, somebody can come to me and says, Nilesh, okay, I don't think you are consistent. We can have a discussion of any of this point, okay. Now against this, if you look at I took six researchers, Narari HR, Aryan Iyengar, Saroj Bala, Ashok Bhatnagar, Mohan Gupta, Vedavir Arya. There are 130. The reason I selected these six is because these six individuals are still alive and around. So in principle, we can have that discussion if they choose to, okay. And you look at some of my YouTube videos and people say, why don't you discuss with them? I said, what would I do? What would you do if they run away from you as soon as they see you? Can't do much, okay. So now if you look at the description, let's see if there is a variation here. Just one, like Saroj Bala, I'm saying, does she has an auxiliary hypothesis? She is no. Otherwise, it's all negative. That's why I given a red color. And auxiliary hypothesis, it doesn't matter. A priori assumption, some of you know these people, therefore, so Narari HR, that Kali Yuga, that is his assumption. And you know how the game is played. For example, him or others, if I say that is your assumption, they say, no, that's not my assumption. And factually they are correct. Do you know why? Because that claim of 3067 is not theirs. It was made by Professor Srinivas Raghavan in 1969. Okay? So it's like, you know, Babri Masjid being built on the old Ram Mandir. So they don't have to take it. Oh, it's not. Manish Pandit fights with me online. You know, it's not. And then when I give him an example here, just sentences from Achar or sentences from Srinivas Raghavan, what does he do? He blocks me on the Facebook, then he blocks me on the Twitter. Okay. All right. Then let's look at Aryan Iyengar. So some of you know that. Where I see Professor Iyengar getting stuck is in the Iron Age. Like I have one-on-one communication with him, and he says, but you know, there was no iron before, and how can there be this? What? Now, what do you think of that? There is no iron before. Based on what? Okay, do you know, if you go back few years, maybe say 20, 30 years, the Iron Age in India was thought to be 800 BC. Do you know why? Because somewhere we found some iron thing, and that was dated at 800 BC. Now, this is a problem of a logic, guys. If you found something in 800 BC iron, all that it tells you that definitely there was a iron in India in 800 BC. It does not tell you anything about the past. Okay? Then they found 1800 BC, now they found 2300 BC. So it's getting backward. But that's what they are stuck in. Okay? And then Kali Yuga again, those two, Ashok Bhatnagar and Mohan Gupta, we talked outside during the break. Their key argument, now you saw in the morning, their key argument is that Bhishma passed away on Magha Shukla Ashtami, and he was on the bed of arrows for 58 days. So do you think they will like my 92 days? No. So if I try to do it, no, they don't. Just no response. No response from them. Okay? Yes. Correct. So but the thing is, if you take Magha Shukla Ashtami as a truth, then the time indeed comes to around 1800 BC. So they are not wrong on that count. If you take Magha Shukla Ashtami, the mean time is 1700, 1800 BC, and it will go plus minus 1000 years. You follow what I am saying? Are you? They discount, yeah. So Ashok Bhatnagar hasn't even communicated with me. Mohan Gupta has not really communicated with me. I mean, you know. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, they cannot go. Right. They cannot go beyond, then it doesn't work out. Yeah. No, the thing is, if they stick to Magha Shukla Ashtami, how do you say, out of 215, with the exception of possibly 2, everything else will go against them. In fact, I'm going to show you that score on the next page. Okay. Okay. So now, once you evaluate the claims, and you can have another criteria. So, is the theory falsified? Are there any non-testable observations? is the theory claim explains the new evidence. Now this is wonderful, guys. This is true of any revolutionary theory. The theory claim explains new evidence. So for example, when I did, now my effort explained Arundhati Vasishtha that no one could, for example. Preserves the past unrefuted evidence. Theory claim leads to new predictions, validation of a new predictions, and this is that truth likeness score that I showed you other day, 224 to 10 and so on. Positive TS score, it better be positive, more observations going on your side than you, and the TS score is better than other claims, okay. So if you look against this, the desired criteria is this, and I put one red for myself, okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. Against this, so remember I wrote down the score approximately like 210 to 5, okay, like 210 observations fit for my 5561, 5 do not. Now we don't have a time to discuss those 5, they are in my book, whole chapter, conflicting observations. For Achar, only one observation, I showed you which one? Which one? Saturn near Rohini, that is the only observation that matches. He claims Mars matches, it doesn't, okay, the second observation. And comets, forget it, okay. In case of Aryan Iyengar, 0 to 215 for that date. In case of Saroj Bala, 10, some approximate. In case of Ashok Bhatnagar, 2, remember I said 58 days, and Magoyam Samanu Prapto Masa Punyo Yudhishthira, that is the one. And Ashtapacha Shatam Ratram Shayanasya Damegata, those 2. Same thing for Mohan Gupta, and there is a one planet which happens to match, so I just calculated. But Mohan Gupta is not aware of it. I calculated for him. Because Mohan Gupta thinks every planet that you heard in the morning is a comet. So don't blame just Achar. Even Mohan Gupta thinks everything is a comet. Shani is a comet, Bruhaspati is a comet, Angarak, Lohitango, Bhrugusuno, Dharaputro, Shashijeno, these are all comets. Okay. And then last Vedavir Arya, what he has done, he has not taken astronomy evidence. So I said don't know in that sense. Any questions? Take a microphone, please. Can you pass on the microphone?
These are 215 evidences, astronomical evidences that you have found. Have they found them and ignored them, or they are rejecting them totally?
Okay, great question. Have they found them? No, they have not found them. For example, just on that question, for example, Professor Achar claims, I mean if you read his paper written 1999 or so, he claims that there are 150 observations. Okay, now we don't have to fight on that, maybe because sometimes you can combine it and call these 3 as a 1 and so on. So how will we solve this problem? If we list what those 150 are, we can find out where is the gap. No, he says 150, he does not list them. Then he says, but you know what, all are not that important, many are repetitive things. Well, they may be repetitive, but write it down. I mean, let's agree to that, So he says the important ones are 40. Then he pulls the argument of interpolation, but there are some interpolations happen, so we cannot trust them all. But at least there should be some that we can trust. Hello? Based on what? So out of those 40, he pulls 12. And then he claims that based on those 12 observations, he could arrive at 3067 BCE. Okay? You can go to my blog, nileshoak.wordpress.com. I mean, just type Nilesh Oak, you will get it. I have written 10 parts on Professor Achar's these 12 observations. Listen carefully. I have shown, Shil, have you read those? No? Not yet. I have shown that the 12 observations that he claims that leads him to 3067 BCE, I have shown that forget about those 12 observations either individually or all 12 together or in any permutation and combination leading to 3067, not possible. In fact, each one of the observations that he claims in the 12, either individually or together, falsifies 3067 BCE as the year of Mahabharata War. See, I mean, I haven't, hopefully you have not seen the frustration on my face, but when I talk about the quality or the level of Mahabharata research, that's what we have on our hands. Who?
Observations are the same that you have taken, or they are
Those
different
12 are
ones?
definitely included by me, and of course many more, right? And Professor Srinivas Raghavan had taken many more than 12, around 40 or so. That's why Achar refers to 150 and then 40 and 12. Now, why did Achar went from 40 to 12? Because many of the observations that Professor Srinivas Raghavan had included in 1969 book, when you check it, they don't match for 3067, at least in Achar's mind. So therefore he removed those. But the remaining 12 he thinks they match, they also don't match. In fact, they falsify, they successfully falsify. Okay. Any other question? What is it? Yeah, so I'm done on this comparative one. But you know, I mean, for example, when I started writing my book, you know, and I started reading other researchers, this is going back 2009, after I figured Arundhati Vasishtha. I mean, until then I did not know who has done what on Mahabharata. So I started looking at the book, I found Achar, I found Srinivas Raghavan, Iyengar, few like that. And when I started reading, I couldn't believe myself what I was reading. So initially, my simple objective, because I was excited about Arundhati Vasishtha, to write a white paper. Just write a white paper and done with it, you know. Then I said, out of curiosity, let's see what, I mean, I couldn't be the first one. I mean, I would be fool to think I'm the only one who has figured this out. So let's see what other Mahabharata researchers has done. When I started looking, they have not done anything. They have not even acknowledged Arundhati Vasishtha. I said, let me go to the next stage. And then I started finding this. Then I said, white paper is not enough. I need to write a book. And honestly, I didn't know other than writing whatever, you know, sales guy. What sales guy for plastics? What does he know? You know. So, but I said I need to do this. Okay. This quick yes here. You know, people say, you know. So when I wrote this, one person in Delhi, Abhitosh Tripathi, he said, no, Nilesh, that is not true. He has read my work. He said, no, there is no non-testable observation in your data set. I said, there is one. Actually, partial verse is non-testable. Okay. He said, no, that's not true. You cannot count. I said, well, think it like. Yeah, but almost. So think of it like this. I said, it's like a, you know, fishing bet. I'm hoping, because if I show everything perfect, the people think I am too stuffed up, you know, think of myself. But just one, they think, let's go and catch him here. So I'm hoping that some other researcher thinks, you know, let's catch him here. So it's a bet, you know. Okay. Multidisciplinary evidence. This is very important. Okay. So again, we have the standard framework for all astronomy observations. Just to get you grounded, Arundhati Vasishtha observation, we did actual calculation, found out the time. Okay, just remember, we are going to use this same framework to evaluate every single evidence. Okay, Ramayana, Mahabharata, so quick summary, more than 200 astronomy observation, each one of them, I showed you how we are testing, I didn't show everyone. Objectively we test, sometime together, sometime individually, to arrive at 5561 BCE. I did the same thing with Ramayana, more than 500 astronomy observation, you test them objectively either singly or in a combination to arrive at 12,209 BCE as the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. Okay. These two books, okay. Just quickly on the Aryan invasion front, you know, they talk about the Aryan invasion happening sometime 2000 BCE to 1500 BCE. And what are the four key elements of Aryan invasion? The people who called themselves Aryan, as in Aryan race, came from somewhere outside India to inside India. Okay, number two. Sometime after 2000 BC, before 1500 BC. If they go after 1500 BC, this nonsense of AIT is in more trouble. If they go before 2000 BC, they are in more trouble. Okay, so they don't go. I mean, Vagish Narasimhan, I said, just as a fun, I said, well, you want Aryan invasion, you can have it in 18,000 BC. Okay. So they brought something after, I mean, they came after 2000 BC, before 1500 BC, and the fourth one, very important, they brought with them the Sanskrit language or a precursor to Sanskrit language. Now, against this, I am plotting the Mahabharata in 6th millennium BC, Ramayana in 12,200 BC, more than 800 just astronomy observations together to that is the barrier they have to cross, the AIT one. And what is those two references telling you? A Sanskrit language based culture, all the names, all the places of Ramayana and Mahabharata in 6th millennium BC, in 13th millennium BC inside India. What happens to AIT? If I had a piece of paper, I will bite it and throw it. That's what happens to AIT. Okay. Now, this is not coming from outside, this is coming from internally. So now people say, now when I say people, I will say there are many, but for example, say likes of Michel Danino. He will say, but you know, you cannot just look at astronomy evidence and just say that, hey, you got the date. And then many other objections, archaeology objections. I don't understand what archaeology objection is. Again, are you familiar with something called absence of evidence is many times treated as evidence of absence. Have you heard that? Okay. Now, this is a logical fallacy, by the way. It's important to recognize that this is a logical fallacy, but that is what many researchers fall into. Okay. Now, this is the funny part. They will say, okay, so where is the palace of Pandavas or Kauravas in 5561 BCE? What is funny is the person who asked me that question might have proposed 3000 or 1500 or something else. And then when I asked, so where is the palace of Pandavas in 1500 BC or 3000 BC? Do you see? First thing, the question itself is wrong, but if I ask the question, now they suddenly are like, you know, oh, this guy is an arrogant person. That is happening. I am not making up stories, okay? So I call them pseudo researchers or folks weak in inferential logic. Shout, where is the multidisciplinary evidence? Okay, and we are going to go through multidisciplinary evidence. Extravaganza. Just tell me how much time you have, and I can go on and on and on, you know, and just don't have to stop. Just to quickly show you the list, this is my list. And finally, I put it archaeology, paleontology, genetics, domestication of grains, animals, much more, okay, and all of this. All of this support Ramayana, all of this support Mahabharata. Let's look at quickly some of them. I'll go fast through this because I did it. Chronology evidence for the Bhishma Nirvana, based on Bhishma Nirvana, okay. So this is my third book, the cover of the third book, okay, on the Bhishma Nirvana. 3 chronology assertions, we did this, based on this, remember, this morning, okay. So again summary, this is Bhishma Nirvana. Let's look at River Saraswati, now this is new. River Saraswati, yes. Keep the question short, get to the point, otherwise I have to stop you. Just write down the question, okay? We'll do that. Okay, what do you see here is the northwest region of India and the rivers. I might have it here, okay. So at the top, what you see is the current path of Satluj. On the other side, you see the current path of Yamuna. You understand which one? This line here. Okay. And in the middle, what you see is a broad paleo channel of River Saraswati. It is not that broad right now. There is no water like that. Ghaggar Hakra rivers kind of flows there. But do you know how broad it was? Like some of this length, we are talking 10, 11, 12 kilometers wide. Okay, from the maps, and nothing is questionable about this. This is all established, both Indian and outside scientists. Now, what we are going to do is this. Pay attention. This is wonderful stuff. I am going to look at the descriptions of River Saraswati from Ramayana, River Saraswati from Mahabharata, and River Saraswati from Rigveda. Okay, let's start with Mahabharata. So again, against this timeline, what does Mahabharata has to say about River Saraswati? At the time of Mahabharata, based on, there are more than 100 descriptions of River Saraswati in Mahabharata. And if you put them together, the picture that comes out to you is that in many places it is flowing beautifully. In other places, it has disappeared under the sand. In few other places, it has re-emerged from the sand. Okay, so you see all those places. If you go back to Ramayana describes Saraswati, Yamuna already separated from Saraswati. Okay, why I already separated? Because we have a geological evidence of Yamuna and Satlaj both coming to Saraswati. So that's why I'm saying already separated. Ramayana doesn't say it's already separated from this. Okay, and also from Shutudri or Satlaj. This is very important. Satlaj is described as flowing west. Okay, and this is one of the verses from Ramayana. Radhini Dura Paramcha. Radhini is a river. Durapara is a very wide paleo channel. Okay, and this Shatadru and it's flowing in the west direction. You know, Pratyaksto Tataranginim. And so now the question comes. Now again remember the timing: 6th millennium, 13th millennium. If river Saraswati is in a state of flux in 6th millennium BC, if it is already separated from Satlaj and Yamuna in 13th millennium BC, then the Grand Saraswati of Rigveda that we talk about, we might, this is just a conjecture right now meaning for next 30 seconds, we might make a conjecture that the Grand Saraswati of Rigveda, we might have to go before 13,000 BC. Are you with me? Okay. So, based on that, we ask the question, does science corroborate this textual evidence, these textual descriptions of river Saraswati? Okay. So, the question we are asking is, was Saraswati is in a state of flux during 5561 BC? Okay. What kind of evidence? Hydrology, geology, climatology and all that. Multiple testing techniques depending on the type of evidence. Another question we can ask is, has Satlaj turned west before 12,200 BC? Because 12,200 is my Ramayana. And Ramayana says Satlaj is flowing westward. And I'll tell you what is the significance of flowing westward, because geological data says it was flowing south before, and I'll show you the maps. And one more question we can ask, the Grand Saraswati of Rigveda, if we make a conjecture, I made the conjecture, before 12,200 BC, is there a evidence for that? You follow? I'm making these conjectures and now let's test the evidence. So, river Saraswati evidence. Okay, this is the river all the way starting from the mountains. This is a paleo channel and going all the way to the sea. Right now that's not the case. Okay. So what we are going to do, the first one is we are going to look at in this region downstream of Saraswati. This region is now in Pakistan. Okay. What they do is to study, they take the earth cores. They go into that paleo channel and actually go down 40 meters, 50 meters and dig the core without disturbing it. And they can study that and find out when the water was flowing and so on and so forth. So Cliff and others, this is from Aberdeen, now he is in Louisiana. When they did the cores, that's how the cores would look like, sort of a pictorial. Will not make you expert on hydrology, but and you can read the original paper, you know, Peter Clift and others. The quick conclusion is that Yamuna separated from river Saraswati as early as 50,000 BC. As early as 50,000 BC and a few other years, okay. Then Frankfurt, the year is wrong, but Frankfurt, this is a work of Clift, but Frankfurt, Mary Corti, there are many other researchers, their work also supports this. Singh and others, they published very recently, hot the press, November 2017 in the Nature. Singh from IIT Kanpur and many other researchers from United Kingdom together. What they did is they did almost the same analysis upstream of river Saraswati. This is brilliant, okay. Now keep that in mind, my Mahabharata book in 2011, my Ramayana book in 2014 and this paper in 2017. There is no conspiracy, I don't know who Singh is, Professor Singh at IIT Kanpur other than knowing the paper. Okay. So here if you look at it, this is now, you know, this is the paleo channel. One goes straight to Pakistan, other goes sort of down. This is here Kalibanga, we are going up, this is Rajasthan and goes up Banwali, Banavali, all that whatever, Gaggar, Hakra, and here you see the Satlaj coming down, current Satlaj is right here. Okay. This is a wider channel of this, and in Kalibanga, where I am drawing the circles, this is where they took those earth cores. So there is a 11 kilometer wide paleo channel. You understand paleo channel? No water there, but from science we know that there was a water, that was a river channel. So they took the 5 cores and let's see what that tells us. Okay, this is the core. Pay attention. This is a $1 million slide. Okay. What this is telling you is that if you look at the Grand Channel, the total wide channel, the water that was flowing through the full channel, okay, stopped 24,000 before today. So 22,000 years ago. Just simplifying, I'm going to call it, let's take it 20,000 years. So assuming that was the grand river, that's Saraswati, and there is no other assumption, no other channel has been found. So the Grand Saraswati, the full channel flowing with lots of water, that 11-kilometer wide channel, stopped by 20,000 BCE. Right? So can you make a connection? Remember, my assumption was if the other things are true, then for the Grand Saraswati of Rigveda, we have to go back before 12,000. I didn't know how far back, but I'm going to say we have to go beyond 20,000. Okay, I'll come back to the second observation, and now this goes back at those of us, among us, who talk about millions of years, infinite time, don't put a limit. Do you know what it is saying? Yes, it stopped here in 20,000, but if you go back, further back, you go 150,000 years, there is no Saraswati, at least not at this location. Now someone would always say that, well, Saraswati must be flowing somewhere else. Fine. Now the onus is on you to find that path. You cannot just make a statement and run away with it, okay? Or run away from it. You have to find it. So that, just like Nakshatra Rohini gives you the limitation, go back 100,000 years and no more Rohini, and you said, can we find another one? If you go back Saraswati, 150,000 years, there is no Saraswati. You follow? I mean, forget Grand Saraswati, there is no Saraswati. There is no water here in between either. Alright, so now what they did, so the Grand River stopped before 20,000 BCE. Satluj inflow, now this same paper of Singh, this is beautiful. What they, now you can see the wide channel, this blue, it's not arbitrarily drawn, this is not a kid drawing the map, when it shows wide, it is that much wide at that position. So look at the location SRH5, this is Ropar or Rupanagar, and there sharply Satluj turns west. Where the arrow is, it says Satluj river exit, okay. Before, in the past, the Satluj flowed straight south, and that was part of Saraswati, and then Yamuna came from the other side. The Nature paper 2017 showed the Satluj inflow coming down straight stopped in 13,000 BCE. How many of you get a aha eureka moment right now? Because Ramayana is saying Satluj is flowing west. Okay, now that Satluj is flowing west since then. So somebody says 5000 BC, not a problem. But just imagine this research had shown that Satluj turned west in 10,000 BC. Then just by itself it wouldn't. But yeah, like Nilesh, now how the hell are you going to explain this? You understand? So, but it is really there. And what you see is actual accuracy is much more than even what you see. I'm just giving you a very whole numbers, 13,000. Okay. All right. So this is just a summary. 13,000. That's when it goes there. 50,000 here. So that goes there. All right. Climatology evidence. So now suddenly, what you saw is that one river has gone this way, another river has gone this way, and there is suddenly no water in Saraswati. After 13,000, after Ramayana. But Mahabharata says there is a lots of water. In some places at least. Where does it come from? You have to look for a climatology evidence, okay? We have sufficient evidence, actually 3 different studies. This is based on Arabian Sea, this is based on lakes, and this is based on some other drain cores. All that it is telling you is this, that there was a significant rise in the monsoon, the heavy rain, beginning with here like 7,500 BC or whatever, and going, 7,000 BC here, going to 4,500 BC. During that time, there was a significant monsoon rain, and that can explain the significant amount of water that was seen during the Mahabharata times. So, Saraswati has actually gone dry or become a very, small river compared to what it was even after, even during the Ramayana times or after Ramayana times, okay. Ramayana does mention Saraswati, but not as a grand Saraswati that you see. So this is another one. We did we did hydrology, we did climatology. Okay, okay, fine. These are all these various references. I have just shown 5. There are 50, 100 if you want me to show. But go to Google, start searching. You will get exhausted. The references don't stop that support this. Okay. All right, River Saraswati evidence from Rigveda. So what we looked at is Ramayana, Mahabharata, and hydrology data. The grand descriptions of River Saraswati, let's find out where they appear in Rigveda. Now, you may be familiar, Shrikant Talagiri, a brilliant work done by Shrikant Talagiri, Rigveda analysis. He wrote 3 books. The second book is worth reading or even having a copy. He created a relative chronology for the Rigveda mandalas. Now, if you look at this list versus the list done by Witzel and the gang, it's different, not slightly, it's different, but they couldn't find any fault with Shrikant Talagiri's work. So, do you know what they do? They call personal shots against him, okay? Then David Frawley's is slightly different. In fact, David Frawley's relative chronology doesn't make sense at all, okay? But I'll not go into that. But Shrikant Talagiri's work, the relative chronology, not the absolute chronology, okay? Relative chronology, I have tested, not published yet, in at least 7 different ways, and it passes. The oldest mandalas, there are 10 mandalas in Rigveda, many of you know that. Now, they are not necessarily 1, 2, 3 in that sequence. The oldest mandalas are family mandalas, 6, 3, 7, then 4, 2 or 2, 4, then 5, 8, 9, and then after a long gap, it's a relative chronology, we don't know exactly how many years, we get the mandala 10. And the suktas of the first mandalas are all over, okay? You follow? So, I have used the relative chronology based on Shrikant Talagiri's work. Against that now, I am going to look at the descriptions of River Saraswati. All the descriptions of Grand Saraswati, see where do they appear? 6, 3, 7, 2. Nadi Garibhya Samudrat, Naditame, Ambitame, Devitame, Saraswati, and Professor Maulikar can tell us more, you know, that the things are floating, they look like lotuses and, you know, going all along. There is a lot of hydrology data that I'll skip right now. They occur in the earliest mandalas, and by the time you come to the last mandalas, you have the famous Nadi Sukta 10.75, and it lists Saraswati, of course, it lists 19 rivers. But if you read that, you will find the status of a grand river is no longer to Saraswati, but it is to Sindhu. The Sindhu is praised, you know, in that sense. So, it is lost. Now, this is just based on relative chronology and textual evidence. Now, let's see what we can do with, this is quick references to that grand Saraswati, okay. Giribhya Samudra there, or at the bottom, Ambitame, Naditame, Devitame, Saraswati. This is that 10.75 Nadi Sukta, okay. Then the genealogy evidence. So, now I looked at the relative chronology. Take that as a different evidence. Huh? So, the grand description of Saraswati is a one kind of evidence. Now, I am going to talk about the genealogy evidence from Rigveda. If you look at genealogy, meaning what? The genealogy of kings and sages, you know, who is the son of who and so on and so forth. Again, same structure for relative chronology. If you look at the oldest mandalas, you will find that predominantly they have been composed, whatever the right word you want to use, by Vasishtas and Vishwamitras, okay. Now, that is the time of Vasishta and Vishwamitra. You see where the Ram is, 13 millennium at least on this thing, that is also Vasishta Vishwamitra. If you go many generations, royal generations before Ram, who is that? Trishanku, again you see Vasishta Vishwamitra. So, it's a time of Vasishta Vishwamitra. By the way, Vasishta Vishwamitras are everywhere. They are in the Mahabharata, they are everywhere, okay. So, don't confuse, it's not one human being living those many lives. The son of Vasishta is also Vasishta, either a genetic succession or a disciplic succession, okay. Now, by the time you come to the last mandala, the 10th mandala, okay, for example, 10.98, aha, this should be your aha moment. You see the reference to Shantanu and Devapi. First thing, they are brothers, 10.98. Devapi leaves for the forest, you may know the story. Shantanu is who? Father of Bhishma. And they are brothers, and Shantanu is the father of Bhishma. How did those people enter Rigveda? Okay, you have to go and read the Mahabharata 57 point whatever, you know, where the description says that Vyasa, Veda Vyas, edited, recasted, whatever is the right word, right translation, the Vedas, you know, and done this. So, we can say that maybe that is when these certain things entered. Okay. So what I just showed you quickly is a triangulation of absolute chronology based on genealogy with the relative chronology of Srikanthalagiri, and I also showed you the textual descriptions of Grand Saraswati or not so Grand Saraswati with the hydrology evidence, with also the absolute chronology evidence of Mahabharata, absolute chronology evidence of Ramayana. Do you see? I'm bringing this together as a full thing. Okay? Again, these references from the one I just quoted. So quick summary. Mahabharata 6th millennium, Ramayana 12-13 millennium BC, and as far as the Rigveda goes, the latest mandala 6th millennium, because we have a Shantanu Devapi, and if you go backwards, definitely we have to go beyond 20,000 BC, but how far back we don't know, at least we don't have evidence. Oceanography evidence, okay, we still have time, very good. Are you enjoying multidisciplinary evidence? Okay. So sudden sea level rise in mid 6th century. So if 5561 BC is my, I know it's tough, but bear with me for another 20 years, okay, 20 minutes, sorry. Huh? Yes, so Swadesh Indology, also Srijan Foundation, yeah. Okay. No. No, so what I'm going to do is just see some of the folks who may not see it, I want to give a quick flavor, but let me assure you, I mean someone like you will definitely go to YouTube and can watch it. So it is there in the YouTube, okay. You go to just type Nilesh Oak, the first or second or third, first 5 presentation, you will see this presentation, okay. But in person, like some people, you know, I mean how many of you will go to YouTube and watch my YouTube videos? You're smart folks. You know what to do, you know, the right answer. Raise the hand right now, you know, okay. No, just kidding, guys, okay. All right. So 5561 BC is the year of Mahabharata war, okay. Mausala Parva says 36 years after the war, Dwarka was flooded. Krishna passed away, Dwarka was flooded, right. So based on that, 5561 BC plus 36 gives us 5525. Everyone agrees? The number has gone down, don't confuses you, very good, okay. We are going in BCE. So 5525 BCE. So that is my prediction for the flooding and destruction of Dwarka. You with me? Okay. Let us see if there is any evidence for 5525 BCE. Okay. So this is what happened, you know, so my what you call the prediction there is that 5525 BCE is the year of flooding. What kind of evidence, and then we can test it. Agama I don't know until I know what evidence, okay. So where do we find the evidence? Of course there should be some evidence near Dwarka, okay. But actually the evidence is found around the world, okay. When I gave my Srijan Foundation talk in December 2016, I said I have around 50 references. That was December 2016. The second talk I gave in January of 2018, so like just about a year, I had more than 100 references. Actually I stopped looking for references now. How many more I need to convince myself? I'm going to share 2 with you because they are very, very clear. Okay, let's look at the oceanography evidence from around the globe. Now astronomy wouldn't help, you know, the star flickering there wouldn't predict flooding and destruction. So you have to look for a geological evidence. Let's look at the oceanography. One evidence can come from as far as Bahamas, okay, east coast of USA. The second one comes from Turkey, Istanbul, and the third one obviously from the Dwarka region. Let's quickly go over this. This is Caribbean islands, Bahamas, and so on. This person, Paul Blanchon, you know, my alumnus, when I did my master's, University of Alberta, I was doing master's, he was doing PhD. We did not know each other, we did not meet at that time. In geology, amazing work. First he did at Barbados, you know Barbados, everyone knows Barbados because of cricket, if nothing else, right? He did at Barbados, and then he found, he did at 6 additional locations in that area, everything same, bingo, 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 you know. Let's see what that bingo number is. Once the ice age ice age stopped, there was a rise in the sea level. Now if you look at it, if you draw a curve, it will look like a continuous curve. However, there were certain events, they are called CRE, catastrophic rise event. Suddenly there was a sea level rise, and there were 3 that they identified. I am going to talk about the one specific one that relates to what we are interested, 5525 BCE. The others are important, but not for Dwarka. The evidence shows that there was a sudden rise. We don't know how sudden because the data is that nature. 6.5 meter sudden rise plus minus 2.5 meters of the sea level. And when was that? 7,600 years ago. If you subtract 2,000 years, that 5,600 years ago. 5,600 years plus minus 130 years. Does 5,525 falls between that? The answer is yes. Okay, this is called corroboration. In science, we don't prove anything. We only corroborate. Okay. So that's the first evidence. The second evidence, let's go to Istanbul. This is what connects the Asia with the Europe. Okay, and there is a Bosphorus channel that connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, which connects to Aegean Sea and then goes to Mediterranean Sea. The Black Sea, right now it's a saltwater sea, was some time ago was not a saltwater sea. It was a sweetwater sea. In fact, it was a sweetwater lake. Sometime suddenly, instantaneously so to say, it turned into a saltwater sea. Do you want to take a guess when it happened? Okay. These are two geologists, Ryan and Pittman from Columbia University, the same university as Sheldon Pollock. Okay. but the other side of the research. Okay. And what they showed, these are the models. You know, this is a gradual inflow versus a catastrophic model. I'll quickly run to the conclusion. Multiple types of data. That's what it is showing. You know, these are different parameters, and they are all leading to that same conclusion. Wonderful work. I mean, I have communicated with them. I mean, they have said anytime you want to come to that location, we can meet and so on. The time when it turned into, got over flooded, lake become a sea and it become a salty sea, 7,550 calendar years, which get translated as 5,550 BCE. Ring something? Now, do you want to know how many of you have done statistics? Like how many of you understand standard error, like that number plus minus some number? More the samples you take, and if you don't have a variation, the number is going to get tighter. Do you know what is the confidence interval, that standard error around this? 5,550 BC plus minus 30 years, plus minus 50 years, plus minus 60 years. Very, very accurate reading. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Let's come to Dwarka. Now, when I say Dwarka, we have to look at the whole Arabian Sea. There are more than 40 studies. And what you see, those 4 graphs, is actually a combination of 40 different studies. And the quick point I want to raise there, I will take one graph because they are all symbolic. Symbolic of this is that there is a significant rise in the Arabian Sea of the ocean water, ocean level. When? Now here, I don't know if you can read, but this is 0. So this is 2000, 1000, 0, that's AD. And now 1000, 2000 BC, 3000 BC, 4000, 5000, 6000, 7000, etc. If you just do here, draw a line, and I will draw the lines here to help you. The first 2 lines here, this is 6th millennium BCE. You should be familiar by now. 6th millennium BC, this is 5th millennium BC. In 6th millennium BC, there was a sudden rise in the Arabian Sea of 15 meters. And then in the next 5th millennium, there was another 8 meters, total of 25 meters. Just imagine the amount of land that would have gone underwater. But something else. Now, those of you who are following the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, Dholavira, and Dholavira being a port and all that, look what happened. The sea level rise, current sea level rise is here. But when it went up, actually it went up 3 meters, like an overshoot. And it stayed there for 2000 years or so. It stayed there for 2000 years. This will explain you why Dholavira was a port and why it stopped being a port when the water started coming down. So I'm talking the Mahabharata evidence for Dwarka, but I'm also explaining the Saraswati Sindhu civilization, Dholavira, Rangapur, and why they were ports. Okay. 6th millennium BC, 3 data points, okay, including the west coast. Let's look at seismology evidence. So that was flooding, and now shaking of the whole thing, okay? I didn't show what? the first one I showed Barbados. Okay, this is the work of T. Rajendran. He was based in Trivandrum before, now at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Okay, so there are many earthquakes that it shows in last 2000 years. We'll skip those. How many of you have heard the place called Mool Dwarka? Okay, not the current Dwarka where you go. Okay, there is a place called Mool Dwarka right here, you know, south of Somnath. Okay, and my conjecture is that that is a proxy for the Krishna's Dwarka, which is now inside the sea. How many of you have read or seen YouTube video of Graham Hancock's video? If not, do check Graham Hancock's video, especially on the Dwarka. And what he shows is that there was an island here, possibly, you know, he doesn't go too much detail, and that disappeared in 6th millennium BCE. Okay, that's additional evidence. But just coming back to this, T. Rajendran found earthquake evidence. The first earthquake evidence going into BC area is around 800 BCE. Okay, we don't find anything else, but I want to show you something else. So when 800 BC earthquake happened, look what is happening to the water. At least the water doesn't match, you know, I mean the earthquake but no water. No one is claiming, actually there are some who claim. You know, there's somebody who claims Mahābhārata war here. Anyone knows that name? Professor B.B. Lal. Again, he has done, not this one. No, he changed from AIT to this. He has done amazing work on Sindhu Saraswati civilization, Rigveda. No, okay, because he's stuck in pottery. Okay. You look at the second evidence for earthquake around 2000 BC. Again, look where the water level is. I'm just trying to make this two together. Water level has already gone down. I mean, if that does. And bingo. Do you think there would be one more earthquake? I mean, I didn't know this until very recently. There is one more earthquake that T. Rajendran also found. The year for that is 5440 BC. Something very interesting, just another point. The plus minus error is 150 here, 150 here, 130 here. What does that tell you? They feel more confident about this in terms of the error than this, even when it happened like 7,500 years. Again, the 55-25 falls between that. This is a corroborative evidence, okay? This is not a proof that Dwarka happened, but we have evidence coming from different sources. And what was happening to the water in 5540 BCE? You know it. There's a sudden increase, 15 plus meters of water there. So even when you start combining, forget astronomy for a minute, you start combining the seismology with oceanography, you get that, okay? So that's that. Evidence for events of last 17,000 years, Surya Siddhanta. I'll just go very fast through this. If you look at Surya Siddhanta, how many of you have read Surya Siddhanta or shuffled through it? There are multiple, there is evidence for updates to Surya Siddhanta, okay? So one researcher, Anil Narayanan, is former ISRO scientist, now based in Washington DC. He identified 4 specific instances, and those all four papers are, you go to Google, you will find it, okay? I mean, Current Science or Journal of Indian Journal of History or whatever it is. They are all there. He showed the first instance where something was updated, longitudes and latitudes of the nakshatras, the recent one is 570. Now, Western Indologists, they say, oh, Surya Siddhanta is very recent, possibly 400 AD, based on this, Burgess and all others, okay? But Anil Narayan also showed there is evidence, I mean, I know I cannot go in the details here, for 3100 BC. And I'm saying maybe, you know, that could be the reason where the Kali Yuga started as some reference point like a Vikram Samvat or Shalivan Samvat. I don't know, it's a speculation. There is another evidence for update in 5300 BCE, again work of Anil Narayanan. And there is additional evidence for another change, another update to Surya Siddhanta sometime between 7300 to 7800 BCE. That's let's take average, 7500 BCE. Okay? What I'm saying is, so people ask me the question, so okay, Mahabharata in 56th millennium, fine. Ramayana in 12th to 13th millennium. What is happening in between? Nothing is happening. What happened? Things are happening, guys. There is somebody to update the Surya Siddhanta. You follow? Okay. Now, if this is not enough, again myself and one of my co-researcher Rupa Bhatti, that I keep on mentioning the name, from Gandhidham, we identified another instance in 12,000 BC. Okay, we are writing, I mean, we have written a paper, we have to publish it on 12th, just amazing. Someone, you know, just suggested another positions of the stars that is there. I mean, it's not like a one line and we say that's the evidence. Actually, from Surya Siddhanta, we have 3 references that come and sit like a jigsaw puzzle, right down to the day. I don't have a time to explain. I mean, that will be 2 days. Okay. So something is happening. So now against this timeline, if I start filling the Surya Siddhanta updates, now it starts filling. It's not like totally empty Mahabharata, Ramayana, nothing in between. Okay. Now if you go to Shatapat Brahman, the original work of Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, Prachodisha na chavante, based on that he said the Shatapat Brahman at least, I mean, definitely was updated or written or whatever in 3000 BC. He said it was written because he was talking 100 years ago. But remember, Kritika rising due east is a repetitive phenomenon, whereas Arundhati Vasishtha is not. But if you go backwards, actually you find a time around 14th millennium BC where Kritika was also rising east. So we don't know necessarily it's a 3000 BC or 14,000 BC. If you take the story of Trishanku, you know what is the story of Trishanku? That, you know, and that Vishwamitra of a Trishanku time, who started Pratisrushti with Shravan Nakshatra as the first one. What happened was, Dhanishta was the first nakshatra, made the verses from Mahabharata, I said. But another 1000 years go by and Dhanishta is no longer the first nakshatra. Now Shravan is the first nakshatra. But just like the problem we are talking, we should change the calendar, but we are not ready to change the calendar. Now whether we should change or not, it's not my personal opinion. I'm just saying the things have shifted. People may not have agreed to it, but Vishwamitra says, no, that's not accepted. I'm going to start my own. That story comes in Ramayana, that story comes in Mahabharata, and that story comes in some other Puranas too. Pratisrushti, you know, with a Shravan Nakshatra. So if you want to do this, when would Shravan Nakshatra would be at a cardinal point? Based on that I estimated, and that comes out to around 13,000 BC. So 1000 years before Ram. And there are 10 royal generations. So I'm not putting the generation, I just said it has to be before Ram, when Shravan Nakshatra has to be at some sensible point, you know, cardinal point. That's 13,000 BC. A fall of Abhijit, I told you, the Abhijit Nakshatra, that goes to like 14,700 BC. That is when only you can explain all the 8 specific observations related to that reference from Vanaparva. Again, 5th chapter, or you can read my blog. So Sanskrit language based civilization inside India long before 2000 BC on every count, not just, you don't have to limit yourself based on Ramayana or Mahabharata, but it helps. Ramayana and Mahabharata gives you those anchoring, and then you start filling the things, okay. So those are the metal blocks, and now pour the concrete, something like that, you know. Genetic evidence, let me skip through this. The mouse, quickly, mouse is worth showing. Okay, this is a domestic mouse. This is a domestic mouse. And you know what is the significance of a domestic mouse? Domestic mouse is connected with a settled civilization, with an agriculture based civilization, grains and all of this. And you know, now these days we go to America and all parts of the world, but the mouse were before us. Okay, of course with the human beings they went. You see mouse starting, all domestic mouse variety, when you look at the genetic code, they start from India and go all parts of the world. And I don't want you to forget this arrow here, 1, that is going to Americas, and here it going 42, going to Polynesia. And don't forget 28 to Madagascar. And the estimated age for this domestic mouse going out of India is estimated, this is not one number, it's estimated to be 25,000, 30,000, 35,000, 40,000, 45,000 years ago. So this is although indirect, very solid evidence for existence of agriculture in India 30, 40,000 years ago. Okay. Oh, we are going to finish this apparently. Okay, how many more minutes I have? 10? 5:30 is fine, okay. So we are going to do a justice, no, we cannot? Okay, 10 minutes, I have 10 minutes, okay. No? 10 minutes, okay. Okay, applications past, present and future. The past application, the whole big deal about astronomy was because of the prosperity that I said on the first day. And why is astronomy needed? Astronomy is needed for agriculture, for predicting the monsoon, predicting the weather, and predicting the season. Okay, accurately. Astronomy is needed if you are going to go on a voyages, navigation, you know. You need to know where the pole star is, where are the other stars, time of the year. Yeah, okay. And the commerce and the travel, and that's how it's a prosperity. That's why until 17th century, India was one of the top 2 countries which contributed to the GDP of the world. Okay. Something interesting, my friend, my colleague, when I was working with Robert Belanger, you know, and he's into some engineer, some fancy things, like he built his own plane, you know, put it together, and he said, let's go fly. I said, I won't. No, just as a humor, you know. But he's a kind of thing. And one day he came, we will, many times we'll go for lunch together, and he said, oh man, this is fascinating about India. I didn't know that. I said, tell me first, what is it that you're fascinated about? And he was, because he builds things, now he was going to build his boat. So when he was looking for it, he found out the best building of boats, and I'm not talking just 17th, 18th century, but going backwards, was in India, along the west coast of India. Okay, now that most of the evidence is gone. So I didn't also know. So I said, what is he talking, you know? So I went to Google. He said, yeah, go to Google, and so you should go to Google and see it. I mean, you know, some of the things might be removed. They keep on removing this stuff from Wikipedia and whatnot. They don't like anything with origin in India, but you'll still find it. Calendar and calendrical corrections, we talked a little bit about it, you know, but they use the astronomy to make those calendrical corrections, okay. Cultural celebration, of course, you need to know. Determination of auspicious time, muhurta, that was definitely based on that. And of course, the astrology, the nakshatra based astrology, and then later on the zodiac based astrology. That is the past. Now, everything that was the past, in some sense, that's applicable to the present. Okay, that is true. Astrology, if you still do, that's true. Now, what do we say? Oh, how do we know about the weather? Now, we don't have to look at the nakshatra, right? That's what we might say. Yeah. So, some methods have changed. We can predict the weather, short-term weather at least, by looking at the different models. The present one that we spend a lot of time on is establishing the chronology of ancient Indian events. Now, I don't have a time, so we don't go into why it is important to establish the chronology. Yeah, I'm not going to ask questions. Yeah. You want them is not answered. Okay. Very good. So take 30 seconds. Thank you. Take 30 seconds, read what is on the screen. Okay. You know, I told Sushri, I can do anything in any amount of time. Ready? Next one. Take 30 seconds, read everything on the screen so that you can ask questions. Good? Huh? What is it? No. Then you can ask questions, right? That's what she's saying, right? Yeah. So don't give them a chance to ask questions. Yeah, here. I just wanted to give them 30 seconds to read, so that they can also ask the questions about it. Yes. It's done. I can do anything in any amount of time. Trust me, okay. Please take the mic, please, you know, and quickly move. You know, how about this? Where is the microphone? Yeah, please, whoever want to ask the question, stand up in a line. We have got 5 minutes, you know. No, come here. No. So we have a time, right? We have a time. You're saying?
Yeah, we have time.
Great. Excellent. No, great. They have a chance. What I'm saying is, whoever wants to ask the question, please come here. That way we are not wasting time in passing the microphone, okay?
Right. Yeah. On the Yugas, if you can clarify why you called it as a dogma.
Why?
You called it as a dogma.
Yuga dogma. Okay, Yuga dogma. Right now, if you look at the camps, okay, there is a AIT camp. What do they say? Essentially, everything that you see to India, the glorious Rigveda and all that, came after 2000 BC. Aryan invasion view, okay? After that. Now, when our side of folks, when they could get rid of Aryan invasion theory to a different level of success, they said, okay, that's not true, nothing after 2000, that's not true 2000 BC, but actually it happened before. But now I call this, so Aryan invasion, I call it a AIT pond. Okay, I don't have a slide, that's what I'm talking. So people have moved, our folks have moved from AIT pond, which is great, to a bigger pond, I call it Indic pond. But pond nevertheless, because we are stuck. So what is that time frame? From 800 BC approximately to 6000 to 8000 BC. You try to tell, these are our folks, the second one. You try to tell anything before 6000, 8000, you will get resistance, you will get all kinds of crazy stuff you won't imagine. I experience it every day. Based on what? Based on dogma. Because they don't have evidence. They will evade the evidence, they will go personal, they will go here, they will stop responding to you, discussion, but they will not have an open discussion. So that is the pond. That's the pond I'm referring to. So now that is one. And then if you go to the third, I don't want to call it a pond because it's an ocean. It's called Yuga. Now, there are more than 30, 40 different definitions of Yuga, where one day you can have 4 Yugas. These are in our ancient literature, not Mahabharata. In 1 year, you can have 4 Yuga. In 5 years, you can have 4 Yuga. The 1000 years Yuga, 12,000 years Yuga, 26,000 years Yuga, million years of Yuga, 432,000, on and on and on. Many, many definitions. But people are stuck on the Yuga so much that, they will ask me and many others, okay, how does your date matches with the Yuga calculation? And I ask them which Yuga calculation you are referring to. And they will pick one and say, well, it doesn't match with this. I said, why did you pick only 1 out of 30? That's what I call Yuga dogma. Now people say, oh, so do you reject all that? I said, no. It is in our ancient narratives. The people who wrote, okay, they might have had a somerus, but somerus can do wonderful things. So they might have some meaning. We have to intercept, we have to understand it. Okay, but you cannot just emotionally take something and run away with it and try to say, show it to me, million years and so on and so forth. That is the Yuga dogma. Please come here. Okay, anyone else has a question? If you can just quickly come here, we'll save time and able to cover more questions.
Based on the research that you have presented here now, not just from the perspective of astronomy, but from all other fields, oceanography, seismology, including genetics, and even the plants when they originated. What kind of narrative in historiography is being generated here? What is the narrative that is being generated here?
The narrative is that based on a objectively testable evidence, we have evidence for a continuous Indian civilization, continuous Vedic civilization, continuous Hindu civilization, whatever the word you want to use, for more than 17,000 years. Now, I stop at 15,000 BC. Even I know I showed you the River Saraswati evidence, definitely more than 20,000 BC. But I am a very conservative guy. People think I just go for many thousand years. No, I don't. I am extremely conservative. Whatever I said here, I am willing to stand in front of anyone in the world. So that's the narrative that I have.
I just wanted the clarification of the title, Application Future Ayurveda Astrology.
Okay.
What do you mean by this slide?
Correct. Very good question. He's my friend, in some sense a distant colleague, in a different way. We are all freelancers working together under the Institute of Advanced Sciences. His name is Jeffrey Armstrong. I gave her the name that she asked. He calls himself Ayurveda astrologer. Okay. He has done work. So for example, he has come up with, now how effective we have to test. I mean, he has tested, I have not seen it firsthand, using the horoscope, so to say, predict, just like, people do what you call standard sample test or blood, whatever, and say which is the 3 dosha combination. He does it based on astrology chart. for example, okay? And then he might suggest a cure. I mean, I don't know that. So that's that. But why, since you ask medicinal astrology, now this is experimental, okay? I won't give you the details for some specific reasons, but you know, there are these Agama texts. Again, I'm not expert in that. I'm helping them from a design of experiment perspective. Is that it says when you formulate a medicine, if you formulate on Ashwini Nakshatra of whatever month, it is a effective and good one. So we need to do double blind experiments. Now that takes a lot of effort, lot of money and lot of cost. It's experimental, we are doing it. There are a lot of challenges. Sometimes what happens is, you don't see the effect of that in the medicine itself, like it's not detectable. But the effect could be on the patient. But when that happens, you take longer time, more effort, more money, because effect on the medicine is easy to test on the rats and cats and whatnot. So that is that second thing. I just answered both, you know, because they were related. Anyone else? Yeah.
Any example for the last one?
Yeah, this is brilliant, okay? Think of it this. Now see, if I said brilliant in the sense, you have to be very sharp in understanding the difference. See, the precession of equinoxes has only certain effect, which is the shift of a lunar month and a season. You with me? Change of pole star and change of relative positions of the star. However, the precession has no effect on the planets. How many of you understand that? Precession has an effect on the seasons, on the pole star, and on the relative positions of Arundhati, Vasishtha and other stars, but no effect on the planets. If you understand it, you will understand I can answer that last one. Or trust me that it doesn't have an effect on the planets. Yeah. So now what happens is, our current models, mathematical models or NASA models are wondering how far back we can use our current data and how far back we can extrapolate when it reaches the limit. And they don't have a objective data to even test it. Mahabharat 5561 BCE, Ramayana 12,209 BCE, Abhijit 15 millennium whatever BCE, these all, because we have come from a very different perspective, they happen in 5561 BC. They act as a golden standard. They act as a, how many of you got that, what I'm saying? Yeah, you got it? They act as a calibration standard for checking the modern astronomy models. This is huge, guys. I mean, how long it will take them before they accept it is a different story. This is huge. This is fabulous. I mean, those of you who understood it should have what you call goosebumps, should have goosebumps. It is that big. Any other questions? No? Yeah.
Are there observations that you can, that in the Mahabharata, that you can see as astronomical observations, but which are currently not explainable at all? That means you don't have a current explanation for that.
Astronomy observations?
Astronomy.
Okay. There are not 100 observations. Out of the total now say 300 observations or so, 215 plus 60, around 300. There are 5 observations, around 5, 10, something like that, that they do not match for my timeline. Okay, they do not match for my timeline. But let me make a quick statement. Those 10 or 5 or 10 observations cannot be, could not be, have not been explained by any other Mahabharata researcher. Some of them simply cannot be explained. Do you know why? Because, you know, if I, for example, say I am born in 1969, okay, I say, and that is can be proved and something like that. And, you know, then I say, okay, well, actually, you know, I met with Mahatma Gandhi in 1923. Here is a problem with that. So the 5 or 10 observations are of such a nature that they conflict with, not just with for my timeline, but they conflict internally with the rest of the Mahabharata evidence. They are in such a conflict that they cannot be resolved. Now some people will simply throw it away. What I prefer is to write down the score as a truth likeness score, 210 to 5.
So my question is also not necessarily just of this thing, but something that they've said which is clearly, which appears to you that it's astronomical, but what is it referring to?
Okay, so what kind of observation is this, for example? Okay, so Balaram Tirtha Yatra. For example, it says Balaram started on a Pushya nakshatra and arrived on a Shravana nakshatra after doing the yatra for 42 days. Okay, so what you can do, and many people have done, including myself, that's not an issue, but you can make him start on a Pushya nakshatra, no big deal, I mean that comes every month. Then you can make him stop on a Shravan nakshatra after 42 days. That's not anytime evidence comes like that, you should, in your head, you should go possibly interpolation, possible interpolation. Too much information is given. More than likely, it is a commentary of someone that became part of the text. But let's keep that aside. So 42 is not a problem. Those two nakshatras are separated by 13 degrees. I mean 13 nakshatras, Pushya and Shravana. So you do that, do the multiples of 13. Marathi मध्ये 13 1 13, 13 2 26, 13 3 49 kind of thing, plus do, so you got 42, 41, 42, that. So that number is good. The problem is, if you look at the other Mahabharata observations, there is no sufficient time for Balaram to come after Krishna came back from Hastinapur to Upaplavya. There are nakshatras given there. Meet with them, then go, and actually there is a reference that Balaram left the camp on Anuradha nakshatra. So the Pushya nakshatra that he left has to be after that Anuradha nakshatra. So you find Pushya and now he has to go and come to the Shravan. That just doesn't fit anywhere. No matter what permutation combinations, gymnastics you do, it doesn't fit. And what does it do? The last day, because he comes on the last day with a Duryodhana fight. Okay? And so that if you take that as a Shravan nakshatra, you have got other problems. Okay? Then the month changes. So for example, just to give you, that's a great question. What happens in case of Achar? Achar starts the war, Srinivas Raghavan, not Kalyanraman, 22nd November 3067 BCE. So from then it goes up to what? 9th December. Okay, those would be the 18 days. So 9th December is the 18th day of the war and Balaram should be there to witness the fight between Duryodhana and Bhim. But now if you try to fit this Balaram reference and Shravan nakshatra in 42 days, that doesn't happen until 12th of December. So 9th December is the last day of the war. Balaram cannot arrive for Achar's date on 12th of December. But so you say, what does Achar done? This is what Professor Achar has done, or so Srinivas Raghavan. Last day of the war, 9th December, Balaram arrives on Shravan nakshatra on 12th of December. If you ask them, so how did he make up to the Duryodhana fight? He didn't say that. I'm just saying, don't ask such questions. Shh. You understand? So that these are the kind of conflicts, no matter what you do, will happen. So that Balaram reference has a challenge. Now somebody will say, therefore it is interpolated. Maybe, instead of calling it interpolated, I am okay with 210 to 5. There are 5 shots against me, fine, but 210. Who is the next one? It's not like the Fedra, because he's seed number 1, nobody puts SS against him.
How do the archaeological findings fit?
Yeah, great question. How do archaeological findings fit with any of this? The archaeological evidence that we have is of a negative kind. Okay? What they have found is a pottery. I was at the Kurukshetra conference and some other presenter, from a different background, she came to me and she says, I hope these guys finally get it and they stop talking of pottery. She spoke my mind, So pottery, that's great. But how does that pottery help? Bibi Lal, great work on other fronts. But he went to a place called Hastinapura, which is thought to be Hastinapura now. Now we have a description of Hastinapura getting destroyed by the floods, but still whatever they found Hastinapura, they dug it, found some pottery that happened to be 2000 BCE, and they said, okay, there is a pottery, that was Mahabharata. Now how does that pottery match with any of the descriptions of the Mahabharata, other than after the Draupadi wedding they went and lived in the house of a potter? You understand what I am saying? So it's a negative kind of evidence. Meaning there is no evidence that either matches with Mahabharata descriptions or there is no evidence that does not match with Mahabharata description. We cannot talk about it. So none. So you shouldn't bring archaeology. What people also don't know is this. We find lots of archaeology evidence, and so people will come, but how come we didn't find anything for 5561 BC? First thing, they don't read. We have found a lot of things on 5561 BC, Rakhigari and so on and so forth, right? So they don't read. But the second one is, what they don't know is the amount of archaeological evidence that we actually find is, do you know what? It's a 0.000000000, keep on going as long as you want, 1% of actually what happened. It's a, it's like a Bayesian analysis. Those who know statistics, you know the Bayesian analysis. For example, if you want to find, is there a life on some other planet outside a solar system? You don't have any evidence. So you say 0 means no life, 1 means yes life. And you use a random generator, keep on going 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, and just do the probabilities. That's the Bayesian statistics. Okay, there is a 60% chance that there might be a life. I'm not kidding, guys. I just give you a simple version of Bayesian statistics. There is nothing. I mean, you can't play. It's a very little evidence that we find. We should be amazed that with that evidence, we can know a lot more about our past. But it's a very little. 99% of the evidence of archaeology, 99% evidence of the different varieties of rice, 99% of animals, they are all gone. Almost practically leaving no trace. So how do we find it out? Based on genetic codes and many other models. Any other question?
The precession of moon, so the axis affects again whether the seasons are dependent on the axis. So, but as the precession occurs, there might be a climate change also, right?
Yes.
The climate change will occur at the duration of the seasons, right?
No, just ask a question. Just ask one question, and so question could be: does climate change due to the precession of equinoxes? Is that your question?
So yeah. So my basic thing is, if when he mentions about that some specific season, so it's based on the evidence that we have on the weather pattern that we have. But then if it rains for say 4 months, so it could.
I get your question. That's why I said ask the question. So, I mean, his question is, so fine, I mean, you are just still sticking to the certain seasons, right, the 6 seasons. But what if the precession is leading to some dramatic weather changes? Fair? That is your question? That's why I said ask the question. I mean, I do this day and night, So, I mean, I can guess the question for that matter. We have some evidence of that, okay, related to what you just showed to somebody else, okay. I'll not go into that, it will take 10 minutes. But if somebody claims that that has happened, there is a Milkovich cycle, you might know about it, you might have heard about it, then the onus is on that person to show that that is the case. For example, there was a lot more grasslands during the Ramayana times. We have that evidence. But then there are other people, for example, do you know what happens? When I say 12,209 BCE for Ramayana, the people will just write on the question, hey, what about, not even what about, Ice Age, question mark. Now, I don't respond to such nonsensical question. You understand what I'm saying? Ice Age, question mark. What do you mean by that? And then, of course, sometimes they'll say, oh, but there was an Ice Age and you're putting Rama walking in this like that. The question they need to ask, I mean, Ice Age where? Suppose some of the talks that I have given, like Saraswati River, they also say, but Saraswati was also merging this. Guys, hold on, time up. You have to ask the question, Saraswati merging to whoever, when and where. I call it space-time odyssey. So back to this, it's not sufficient to say that, oh, there was Ice Age. You know where is the Ice Age right now? Oh, we think Ice Age is gone. No. Path of the Pole, read by Charles Hapgood. There is currently an Ice Age on Antarctica. For example, you go 6,000 years back, by 4,000 BC and before, there were rivers. There is evidence of rivers on Antarctica. I'm giving you a broader answer. So what happens is, so for example, if you are asking that question, it should lead to something. I mean, otherwise, tell me about the weather of the world. I cannot comment on that.
My question is kind of like, because when somebody says about the weather, so it's how can we? It's based on the fixed argument that the weather will be only any season will be only 2 months, and Can we assume that for that calculation?
Huh.
So if the
Great question. So can we assume that the seasons were the same, the weather was the same going back 5,000 years and 10,000 years? That is your question? Fair?
Because there have been some star position astronomical data given and some weather data given, and there is a correlation. So based on that, on this whether this kind of astronomical data was there is what we are making some kind of calculations.
Okay, but understand we are not predicting the weather using astronomy data.
No, I'm just saying that because we are trying to figure it, we are trying to put together 1 + 1 = 2.
Yes, now I'm understanding your question. So my assumption is, and my assumption is for a simplicity. My assumption is that for practical purposes, for most part, the weather was similar as it is today for each season going back thousands of years. Now, there could be evidence that will come and says, Nilesh, what were you thinking? Actually, here is the data. Then we can talk about it. But we cannot just talk of the possibilities. So we cannot talk about it. But ice age is people ask the real question, but because when they talk of ice age, they think there was ice everywhere all the way to Kerala. India, the Indian subcontinent is not affected directly. There may be some weather pattern changes, not affected directly for million years due to ice ages. Okay, if that helps. We need to stop. We are at 5:30. Yeah, Gauriji.
I have a question about horse.
About?
Horse.
Horse, yeah.
In Rigveda we have the references of horse, but as he pointed out, archaeologists never believe that horse was in India, say some few thousand years back,
Yeah.
So, therefore they say that the Rigvedic period is recent and not that ancient one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you said about that mouse migrating from India some few thousand years back, so can you say that horse came to India or horse went from India elsewhere, and what is the time frame?
Yes, the answer is yes. Again, I don't know if you have a specific names of archaeologists, probably you don't have the specific names, right?
I have had discussions with Zamkhedkar.
Okay. The one who did the Inam Gao and those or no?
No. Presently ICHR president.
Okay. Now I don't know who that person is.
Arvind Zamkhedkar.
No, understand. But I'm saying he's out of Pune originally, right?
Yeah. Deccan University.
He became a head of ICHR,
yes,
right?
Deccan University.
Okay. I mean, I don't know him individually, but that doesn't matter. I will say the common chronic problem of our researchers is they don't read. If they just go to Google and just type, I mean, who wants to do that? Just type the word, the horse in India, okay? The evidence for horse in India or evidence for, I mean, I don't know what the right combination, but you have to give some chance. Dr. Premendra Priyadarshi has written a huge blog, books also it is there. Horse evidence, enough horse evidence going back to 18,000 BP, 16,000 BC. And if you go back further millions of years, also, I mean, these are primitive horses, but those are also found here. Also, just to that point, and you may be able to know more about it, the horse of Rigveda, the steppe horse is not the horse of Rigveda. The one reference that we have, the Rigveda horse has 34 ribs. The steppe horse has 36. So definitely did not come from steppe. The Arabian horse, but then you also have a Marwadi horse, they call it Marwadi horse. Then you have the Uttaranchal horse. If you type Premendra Priyadarshi, P. Priyadarshi and his blog, you will find just tons of data, And again, he has done an amazing job on genetics, but also horse and so on. So there is sufficient data.
And
See,
one more question was about Avesta. Talgeri has discussed about historical evidences while dating of the Rigveda and the dating of the mandalas, which is the ancient one and all that. He has taken into account Avestan evidences as well.
Yes.
So, according to the modern linguistics, when they frame that the Indo-European language and then Indo-Iranian and this and that.
Yeah.
So, where would Avesta fit in this timeline, on this timeline?
Very good. So 3 points about this Talageri's work. As far as the relative chronology of Talageri, it's a fabulous work. As far as absolute chronology of Talageri, okay, it's a disaster. Okay, and it's a disaster because of the logic. the inferential logic, the challenges with the inferential logic. And I have discussed one-on-one with Talagiri also at his blog, and at some point if the person doesn't get it, you leave it. I mean, there is no point continuously fighting. I'll just make my point. His all three works are great, especially the Rigveda and also the Avesta. Just in my limited understanding of it, I'm not a linguist, nowhere close to it. What I find the greatest contribution of Talagiri is this, just my understanding of it. What he showed is using the same linguistic methods of Western Indologists who use those methods to create this whole nonsense of Aryan invasion theory. He said using the same methods, analyzing the same text like Avesta or Rigveda, he said if at all, based on that linguistic evidence, if at all the migration happened, it happened from India to outside. That is his greatest achievement. Now there are many other works coming up. One is, I mean, Ashwini and I know Dr. Shiva Shastri. You know about the Avesta. He says the fraud of Avesta, and I don't have a time to go into it. Dr. Shiva Shastri. And what he's showing is, he's showing the problem of the linguistic methods too. There is then, you might know the name, I'm Giuliana Mercantano, like a professor at University of Rome, you know. So he has also shown, again she has shown the problems with the Indo-European language model. So there is more on going on. But Srikant Talagiri's achievement is this, but to answer your question, I have a circumstantial evidence, I don't have a time to research yet, that possibly the time of Zarathustra, even forget Zarathustra, but the Parsi religion or some of the tenets of Parsi religion existed in parallel with the Mahabharata, which means 6th millennium BC. And some of the indirect references can be found in the Shanti Parva. But you have to make some leap of faith because the details are not sufficient. And we can talk offline. I know a couple of other books. All right, can we